call to order the meeting of the Eastham Finance Committee. This meeting will be video recorded and can be viewed on Channel 18 or on the town website at www.eastham-ma.gov. Also, this meeting is done remotely pursuant to the emergency order of Governor Baker. So we'll start. The first item on the agenda is the minutes that I sent around, I think twice, just recently sent one. Does anyone have any corrections or comments or deletions from the minutes? I'll go through and ask Fred. Do you have any? No? Just shake your head. I can see you. Okay. Mary?
No.
Rick?
No.
Rich? I mean, not Rick. Tom?
Gary, the minutes say that under approval of minutes, it says the April minutes need to be amended to show Peter Wade attended. But I thought these were the April minutes. Am I confused? This meeting was from April 28th.
Yeah.
Right, we did it. I think we had a special meeting at April 28th. We had a call, so I think we're okay on that.
Yep. Okay.
All right.
Yep.
That was Tom. Pete, you have any changes or
Jerry,
comments?
I think it might be useful. I think these minutes are unbelievably good. All the votes where they're not unanimous, it'd probably be useful to list the who voted in the minority.
Yes,
For the record.
I agree.
Okay. That's all.
We will make, that will be in the, that will be added to those minutes in the motion. Okay, let's see. George, are you on yet?
Not that I see.
I don't see him up yet.
He's not. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as amended by Pete?
I make a motion that the minutes of April 28th be approved as written, except for the amendment regarding who voted in the minority.
I second the motion.
Do I have a second?
No.
Second was Rick. Okay, was the second. All right. Any further discussion? No further discussion? Okay, we'll go to a vote. It has to be a roll call vote, so we'll go in the order I have. So get ready to unmute your lines. Fred?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Pete?
Yes.
I don't know, is George on yet? No. And Jerry votes yes, so that's 1, 2, 6, zip. Okay, unanimous on that. So now the next item on the agenda is
There he is.
We got George.
He's coming.
George is on.
Yep.
All right.
Sorry for the delay.
Oh, it's okay. George, we've started. We did approval of the minutes, so you missed that part. But other than that, we're just beginning.
It was pretty boring, George.
Yeah. Thank you, Jackie.
That's not,
Excuse me, George, let me interrupt 1 second. Excuse me, George, if you hit the button lower left that says start video, we'll be able to see your camera.
All right.
Third video is crossed out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Touch
yeah,
it.
you hit it. Just touch it.
just click it.
there you
There
are.
you go.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay. All right. Good. Next item on the agenda, I'm going to go over to Jackie to introduce our new finance director, who is also on, a finance director and assistant town administrator, who is also on the line. And we already got a tome of data from him this morning, so we're all set. So Jackie, the floor is yours.
Well, one of the reasons that I'm excellent is because now Rich is here to share the burden with me. And so that made me excellent. So some of you, Jerry, were you in on the interview of the?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Art and I.
Art and
I
Jerry both were. So he can also attest to the fact that we had great candidates for this position. Rich, however, was head and shoulders above the rest of the pool because he is a CPA. He had years of accounting experience and then became an auditor, specializing in municipalities and some of the, I think, the messier ones as opposed to the well-functioning ones. And then for the past, I think, 8 years, Rich, you've been the accountant, finance director, and director of operations, and probably many more hats for the town of Yarmouth, juggling that position brilliantly. So I can't be any more delighted to have Rich, and I'm sure he's horrified with our status right now because it's only day 7, and but we're happy, and hopefully Rich will be very happy with us.
Right, well, Rich, you have anything you'd like to say to this assembled group? I was going to say something else, but I decided not to since it's recorded.
Well, I just been here a few days so far and hit the ground running. There's lots of things to look at. We're trying to pull together a budget, try to get a handle on our debt situation. There's some debt issuance coming up in the next several months, and planning for the upcoming budget are kind of a big deal. At all the same time, kind of looking at how we're processing and operating internally, administratively. So it's a lot ahead of us, and I look forward to working with all of you on those things. So
Good.
we got a lot we can do.
Does anyone have any questions they want to ask Rich?
You'll be attending all of our meetings?
Plan on it, yeah.
Okay. Excellent. All right. We'll get back to you, Rich. I mean, you're not done now for today. I mean, we'll be back. The next item on the agenda is, as you all know, the Finance Committee is made up of 9 members, 3 of whom are appointed by the Select Board, 3 of whom are appointed by the moderator, and 3 of whom are appointed by the Finance Committee, one each year over a 3-year term. And you are barred by the charter from serving more than 3 consecutive terms without a break of at least a year. And Fred was appointed by the Finance Committee, and he has served 9 years, and so he cannot be reappointed. So that we have an opportunity and a duty to appoint someone to fill the slot that Fred currently has. And generally, in the case of individuals volunteer to serve on committees in the town, and we have 2 volunteers who have 2 citizens who have volunteered saying they would like to serve on the Finance Committee. And so both of them are on the line, and we're going to in a sense, interview them. I think generally we know both of them, but to interview them, and then we will go, after we're done with that, we'll discussion and then vote to appoint someone to the committee from the Finance Committee, and that name will then go up to the Select Board, who will finalize it, and so we will try and keep a full committee. We have, just to further let you know, Tom Gardner is appointed by the Select Board, and his term is up. He can be reappointed, and I think he has already spoken with the Select Board and the clerk to move on that. The other is Mary Shaw, and Mary's term is up, can be reappointed, and it is by the moderator. There will be, because Steve Cole, who's on here, is not running for moderator again, she has spoken with Scott Carey, who is not yet the moderator, is running unopposed and will likely be the moderator. The other thing to let you know is that Art, who's not on the phone, not on here yet, is running for the Select Board unopposed. I like to harass him saying I'm starting a write-in campaign to stop him, but that's not going to occur, at least from my end. He, after the 23rd of June, would have to resign from the Finance Committee, but he was also a moderator appointment, so Scott Carey would have another appointment coming up whenever, when that comes. And I have spoken with Scott and said that I would like him to go forth and try and make that appointment as soon as possible so that the committee can be at full strength. Now, after that speech, we're going to go, Mike, if you would, I guess you mute Steve's line and make sure Russ's line is open. And Russ, welcome. I think most people know, on the committee, know who you are, since you've been on the committee, I think, for 18 years with a break there or whatever the case is. Welcome, and I would like to give you the floor to say whatever you'd like, and then we'll ask some questions, and then when we're done with that, we'll move on to Steve. So Russ, the floor is yours.
Well, I guess the questions you have are, why do I want to be on the Finance Committee, and what qualification or attributes do I have that would add to it? And basically the why is just to try to assist the town in its budgeting issues and be an advocate for those issues. And in particular, but not solely, those might be this year's budget, which I think is going to be quite difficult, particularly where it doesn't appear that the state or the towns are going to get any help from the government. And my biggest concern is to find a method to keep all of the employees on board in every condition. Now, I worked for a company that, when we ran into these times, basically ended up making their salaries some percentage of what they were. In the case of where I was, it was 80%. But I think the most important attribute to any business or any town is their employees. And I do not think that any of them should be let go if there is a method that can allow, and if needed, obviously, but if there is a method that could, for a short period or some period of time, could get their salaries to be cut by some percentage. Secondly, is to ensure the passage of the Nauset Regional High School building project. I think that is exceedingly important. I think there are some people, particularly from Brewster, who have an ideological edge to not wanting to provide funds for the school, and I want to be able to assist however I can in that. The other things are, the third thing is that I think is very important is providing low-income housing and support for it in this town. I think that is a serious priority. It is very difficult for the people that work here to be able to afford it because of people like ourselves are retired down here, and the cost of housing goes up. Lastly, and this is a longer term issue, but it's something that I was interested in when I ran for selectman and earlier, is to provide the resources and enhancement to our beaches and boating. That drives our economy. If we lose them or lose them in some degree, it will hurt the town from people coming down and vacationing here, which basically is our budget. Qualifications or attributes, obviously one you've already mentioned, Jerry, is I've got 15 plus years on the FinCom, approximately 5 as the chairperson. Secondly, my professional background has uniquely prepared me and trained me for the Finance Committee. And by that, I mean that Finance Committee has no authority. It only has influence. And as being in semiconductor sales and marketing for 40 years, but primarily in sales, I never had any authority. So I'm very comfortable with working through influence. I think it's very important. I do not believe that the Finance Committee should take over the budgeting process. And one of the reasons that I got off the committee, well, not got off the committee, but got off being the chairman, is I felt that there were some people in our committee that were feeling constrained under that issue. I don't feel constrained there. I think it's the right way to go. And I think that a lot can be done on this committee just through influence and not total authority. Confrontation. It's not to be avoided. It is to be utilized for the betterment and enhancement of things. A lot of people think that confrontation is a bad thing, but your whole life is confrontation. Your marriage, your children, your business. A lot of people look at confrontation as an adversarial thing. I look at it as a way to get to the issue and find a way to solve it. So I welcome confrontation, not in the bad way that some people get into it on a negative situation. I willingly will admit when I'm wrong. And when new information or rationale presents itself, I will adapt to that. I have a lot of knowledge and I'm very close to the Nauset Regional High School issues, and I regularly attend their meetings. And I think that attendance and that knowledge is quite important. I'm always in town during the budgeting and period and town meetings. I do not have a place in Florida or anywhere else that I go in the winter. And I will speak truth to power and on controversial issues. I think the Finance Committee can make a difference. And that happens in two ways. One, at town meeting, you can make a difference. And I think that I have in the past, and I hope to be able to in the future. Lastly, if any of you drop over, I've got a very nice wine collection. So that's about all I have to say. Are there any questions that I can answer or try to answer?
Yeah, let's try and go around so that we don't everybody talk over each other. So I'll go in order that I had when people joined. Fred, do you have any questions for Russ?
Sure.
Okay.
Russ and I know we like confrontation, don't we, Russ?
Yes, we do.
So my concern, Russ, is that, over the years, you've been a strong advocate for the schools, and I appreciate that. On the other hand, I think that there is certain fiscal constraints that we need to start to put on the schools, especially in light of the fact that it looks like we're heading down the road toward a rather large bond issue to support this new high school. And I wanted to know if you would ever support any kinds of reductions in costs across the board there.
I wouldn't support offhand anything that's an across-the-board reduction. Now, we've always held them roughly to a 2.5% increase, which I don't think is unreasonable. And for the most part, they've kept it. But I think that one of the issues on the school budget that I've made a point of before, and I'll make this point again, is that the school budget, as a percentage of our budget, is quite reasonable. If I have it correct, this past year, it's 36% of our budget. And if you go to the Upper Cape or off Cape, or to Connecticut or New Jersey or New York, their school budgets will run somewhere between 65 and 85% of their budget. We're fortunate that the second homeowners down here don't contribute children to them. So I don't look at the Nauset Regional School System as a major cash issue. I think the issues that we've had, more to the issue of cost in the past, has been is medical insurance and the cost of retirement. Those two things have been big. The medical insurance, fortunately, over the past 6 or 7 years, has seemed to flatten out a little bit, and that basically came about because I think because of the ACA Act or Obamacare, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
Can I answer your question, Fred?
More or less. I think the heart of my question, Russ, is more your outlook on just cost control and oversight. And you and I butted heads with this about the water issue, and where I wanted some independent oversight of the water project. And I think across the board, that's something you and I disagree with in terms of monitoring and making sure that the money we spend is spent well. There's nothing you can change about that opinion of mine, but that's what I'm saying.
I understand. Well, I think that cost everywhere is an issue, and it should be looked at closely. And I think in general, for the most part, in most all issues that we have, if it makes sense with the school system, absolutely, I would do that. But I am an advocate for that school system. It is rated by U.S. World and News Report number 24 in the state, and I think that it should be supported as best we can. As far as the other issue you brought up with the OPM on the water system, I was for that. I really was, because it was $130 million, not including the financing, and that was scary. But after I stepped down from the chairmanship that following year, which was, I think I stepped down to 15 to 16, it was brought to my attention in December that there was information that had been put together by Neil Andrus and by Sheila Vanderhoff that made a very strong case for not having an OPM. And I was very disappointed that, and maybe I should have gone to more selectmen meetings, but I didn't. That information showed a total lack of transparency. And that's where I said I'll change my mind. I was for the OPM, but the letters that Neil Andrus wrote on July 1st and the one that Sheila wrote on July 15th made it absolutely clear to any rational person that it wasn't necessary. And I think that's been proved correct. So, any other questions, Fred?
I'm done with you.
Okay, we'll go to Mary. Do you have any questions for us, Mary?
Yeah, hi, Russ.
Hello, Mary.
As we all know, you've been on the finance board for a total of 18 years, 9 years with a year off and then 9 more years. I was wondering what your thoughts were on the importance of having new blood into a committee that will look at things with fresh eyes as compared to somebody who's been on the committee for many, many years. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that if you find somebody that you interview and you feel that can provide that type of help to the committee, then please do what you think is correct. But I think I have a lot to offer, not only in my institutional knowledge of what is going on in the town, but based on my abilities to understand the numbers that are presented. So if there's somebody, obviously you pick the best candidate that you can. I think I'm okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Rick, do you have any questions for Russ?
Just a general question about, if we're going to be facing all this economic uncertainty from the lockdown, et cetera, what are your thoughts on pulling the levers of cost control versus taxes to make the budget balanced at the end of the day?
Well, I think that has to be fleshed out and discussed. As I mentioned to you, if it's possible to do it and we need to do it in terms of personnel, I strongly advocate for keeping personnel on board at a lower cost, if necessary, for a short period of time. I've seen it work in practice. But the bottom line is, we're going to have to do what we're going to have to do. And if measures like that need to be taken, then that'll be the direction we go. But I will be for that reluctantly, and it will need to be proved to me that that's the way we need to go.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go. Next on my list is Tom. Do you have any
Hi, Russ.
questions?
Hello,
No,
Tom.
I don't have any other questions. I got to work with Russ for just the past few years before he was off. It was a short period of time there, but other than the questions that have been asked, I don't have anything additional at this point.
Great.
Thank you, Tom.
Next is Pete. Are you there, Pete?
Yeah, I was muted. No questions at this time, Jerry.
Okay, fine. George?
No, I don't have any questions. I just want to say to Russ, that your history with this committee is very impressive for the contributions that you've made and the commitment that you made. So regardless of how this thing comes out, thank you for everything you've done for the town. It's very, very impressive.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I guess the next person on the list is me. I've known Russ. I don't really have any questions. I wanted to reiterate what Tom had said. No matter what comes out today, is first a thank you, and second of whatever it is, keep on doing it. Keep on being active, Russ, is where I'm at. Now, does anyone else have any other questions? Follow up on anything, any question that was done or anything before? Otherwise, we'll thank Russ and get him muted and go on to Steve Cole. Anybody have any other questions? None? Okay. Russ,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you.
Thanks,
thank
Russ.
you. So, Mike, if you would mute Russ's line and let's bring up, unmute our friend, let's see, Steve,
I just
Steve Cole?
unmuted.
Okay.
I just
All right,
unmuted.
Steve. Okay, Steve's unmuted. Steve, of course, is the moderator of the town, had been on the finance committee for a few years before he ran and successfully to be moderator of the town. And I think at one point he told me that he wanted to not run to be moderator because he wanted to get involved in stating his opinion, because as moderator, he felt he had to be even-handed and just show and run fair meetings. So that's where we're at. So Steve, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate the opportunity to meet with you and be considered for the appointment. I think I may have told you, Jerry, that I'm on pain meds this week. I had a very bad back injury over the weekend. The meds are helping, but I may be even a little more loopy than usual, so bear with me.
We've
and
never,
I'm-
Steve, we've never used that word for you. No, never.
I appreciate that, Jackie. Well, maybe
But-
I do.
Yeah. Steve, I'm a child of the 60s, so loopy is normal, right?
Gotcha. I have some notes here so I could stay focused and not wander off. So I hope you'll bear with me. As you pointed out, I have been on the finance committee before, from 2010 to mid-14, when I was elected moderator. Now, it's not 18 years, but there is some experience with the committee. You're correct. I chose not to. I love the job of moderator, by the way. It enabled me to do quite a bit in contributing to the town in a different way than I had been used to before in contributing. But I missed being able to be involved in advocating and help steer and comment on significant issues facing the town. And so that is the major reason I chose not to run for re-election. The Finance Committee was my preferred choice of getting involved for a couple of reasons I want to mention. One, obviously, I had experience with the committee. The purview of this committee, perhaps more than any other one, is just the great overview, albeit from a financial direction, but all policy is about money anyway, or most policy is. So it gives a wonderful purview of the issue facing the town, an overview and an ability to contribute in different ways and have an opportunity for a positive impact. Now, I am not seeking to come on the committee with an agenda on any issue. Yeah, I have preferences and I want to learn more. I want to see what the current facts are. What they were 10 years ago is not what they were 10 minutes ago. So I'm waiting, if I'm on the committee, to see what's up on the agenda, what the policy preferences are of our town manager and select board, of the rest of the finance committee. I do not have a fixed agenda. So the questions that some of you had, I probably would answer in a slightly different way than Russ did. Another reason for my interest in the finance committee has to do with a subtle but important change that's being proposed by Peter's Charter Review group on how this committee could have a greater input on the capital improvements plan. And there's an opportunity here to influence the plan by working even more closely with the town manager and also independent of the town manager. And that's attractive to me. I was on the first capital projects committee that happened to be for the library. And that was one experience with capital planning and implementation. And back in 2012 to 14, I was a strong advocate with many others for the development of a town water system. And that was a big finance committee priority at the time. And I worked very closely with the select board and Sheila Vanderhoff to create an impactful educational program to help the citizens really understand what the water system was and wasn't, and how it would work, and how much it would cost, and how the cost would be paid for. Fred, you were very much involved with us helping set up that educational effort as well. Apart from my prior service with the Finance Committee, my entire working life and retired life has been about public interest and community service. Before I retired, I was the president and CEO of the National Better Business Bureau organization, one of the premier self-regulation organizations in North America. And there I managed a $24 million budget. Jackie, it's sort of quaint, but when I was first interviewed by the Select Board for the Finance Committee in 2010, they were asking me about what budget management I had. And at that time, the $24 million I had been managing was precisely the budget of the town of Eastham. We've come a long way since then. Before my work with the BBB, I was the chief of consumer protection and securities regulation for the state of Maryland. And before then, I was a poverty and civil rights lawyer. All of this work experience gave me what I think was a very good understanding of the powers of government and the limitations of the powers of government. And it's a good balance, I think, to have on a committee such as well, maybe any town committee, but especially the Finance Committee. When I retired 10.5 years ago and became a permanent resident of Eastham, I continued this community service emphasis. I was on the founding board of Nauset Neighbors. You know, that's the group that sends drivers to help seniors and does other chores for seniors to help them be able to age in place in their homes. I was the president of Nauset Newcomers. I was the treasurer and a member of the board of trustees of the Cape Rep Theater in Brewster. I was on the executive committee of the Orleans Yacht Club. And currently, I am the treasurer and on the board of directors of the CDP, the Community Development Partnership, headquartered here in Eastham. And that's the Lower Capes Economic Development Corporation. And of course, I served 6 years as moderator. I think all of this experience has given me an appreciation for the breadth of issues facing the Cape, Eastham, and this committee, and an appreciation of the energy and expertise of the citizens in this town, many of whom represented right here today. I hope I'm favored with your appointment. I think the Finance Committee is stronger than ever, and I think it's really poised to continue to make a significant contribution to the town. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
All right. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. Let's go through with questions again through the list so that we don't talk over each other. Fred, do you have any questions for Steve?
Sure. Hi, Steve.
Okay.
Hey, Fred.
Steve, I think you alluded to it a little bit, but what do you see as really the key role of the Finance Committee here in Eastham as it's currently structured?
Well, I was influenced greatly by a comment in growing out of frustration from Sheila Vanderhoff when she was the town administrator. And she was raising a concern about the amazing amount of time we were taking what she might have called nitpicking on small budget items when there were millions and millions of dollars of big issues going into the future that we weren't spending the commensurate amount of time on. And she, at that time, said, you really ought to be a capital projects committee or a capital budget committee or a capital planning committee, which is, I think, where Jackie's suggestions to the Charter Review Committee are consistent with. I won't say it came from that, but consistent with that point of view. So I think my experience in being involved with nonprofit boards is, and I think town committees sometimes could be in this trap, that it's easy to glom on to the $7,000 issue and miss the $75 million issue. Because it's easier to understand that smaller issue. And yet our job, I think, as a finance committee is to look at the big picture. So that's the interest that I have in looking to the future. And I don't know what might have been different in the town if 15 years ago, the water issue had developed differently and we had prepared differently to be ready for it. I can't speak to that. I wasn't here then, but it's an example of planning that needs to happen far in advance so that these aren't as consequential issues as they turn out to be.
And you kind of answered my question, because I think, you and I both chafed a little bit in our role as just sort of just an advisory. And I'm glad to see that Jackie and the town is sort of expanding the role a little bit to be a little bit more proactive on longer term issues, and bonding and long-term debt is clearly one of them. And how do you feel about the amount of debt that the town currently has today and what we're looking at coming down the line?
Well, it's obviously grown quite a bit in, say, the last 10 years. But to me, it seems manageable now if we are able to keep up the methodology of retiring as we add. Now, water doesn't make that as neat a one-to-one retirement, but I think we stage the water in a way where it is manageable. I'm not an anti-tax guy, but I don't think we need to be thinking along those lines right now. The citizens have been really hit hard, well, across the country, but including here at the Cape, and certainly here in Eastham. And I think we need to be more careful than ever about what we take on. But I think it's manageable for the right kind of project, and debt may actually be, with interest rates the way they are, may be more efficient than many other ways of buying infrastructure.
Right. Thank you, Steve.
Okay, Mary?
I don't really have any question in particular, but Steve and I worked on the Capital Projects Committee for the library together. And actually, he's the one that appointed me to the Board of Finance, which I'm on right now. So I want to.
So we can blame Steve. We blame Steve on that, huh?
Right. So so I just want to thank him for all the time that he has put for the town.
Thank you, Mary.
Okay. Rick?
I don't really have any questions, but Steve was also the one that initially piqued my interest in the Finance Committee.
All right. Tom?
Hi, Steve. I don't have any other questions, but I hope your back feels better.
Oh, thank you.
I have those issues too, so hang in there.
Yeah.
All right, Peter?
No questions. I just feel concerned or sad that we have to make a choice between these two excellent candidates, and hopefully we can figure out a way to get them both on.
Right. George? Sorry, George.
All right. No, I'm good. I have no questions.
All right. It comes to me. So, I'm on the Finance Committee because of Steve. I happen to have known him in another life. At his retirement party from the BBB, I happened to see Adele and ask her, "Oh, how you doing? Where you going?" "Oh, I'm moving to the Cape." We found out that his house was a mile from my house. So when we came up here, he once asked me if I was interested in coming. Steve, one question I wanted to ask is, I think, if my memory is correct, way back with the Better Business Bureau, that you had sort of left and they wanted to get you back in order to straighten some things out financially there, I think, at some point when you were...
Well, they needed a lot of straightening out probably, but when I retired, I retired.
Okay.
I had been there for, as general counsel for 17 years, and CEO was 5. And, there's a point of time where moving on is very fruitful.
Right. Yeah, Steve and I were also on a advisory committee of the Federal Trade Commission, along with the at the time, Lieutenant Governor of Massachusetts. So
That's right.
we did some of those things. So again, as I said to Russ, Steve, I wanted to say thank you. I wanted to say whatever happens today, keep doing what you're doing, whether it's on this committee or if whatever comes up. And of course, there is another time. So we really appreciate your interest and the interest of Russ. And now we'll discuss. So we'll put you on mute, and it's an open meeting, so you guys can stay on and hear us talk about this. But I appreciate your time and your effort on this. Both.
Jerry,
Thank you very much.
Jerry, I know it's a public meeting, but do you have a preference as to whether we stay on or not?
Since it's a public meeting, I can ask, does anybody have any issues? I mean, it's public. They can, even if you go off, Steve, you can go on and turn it on and see what we said anyway. So I don't see that it makes any difference on that. So I just want to let you know, you and Russ can stay Eastham citizens can look, I guess even non-Eastham citizens can look at it. So anyway.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Steve.
So I'll mute myself then.
Okay. All right, so now let's have some discussion here to try and on this with two excellent candidates. And anyone who want to begin, I can start. Fred, since you're the guy leaving, I've been harassing you all day to start, so we'll start with you again.
Well, it's a good way to go out, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, I appreciate both Russ and Steve volunteering for the committee. I think they're both great candidates. I've worked with both of them on the committee. I guess that shows my longevity. So I kind of know a little bit about both of them, and it's going to be a hard choice.
All right. Mary.
I don't have any comments at this moment. I agree with everything
Rick.
you said.
Oh, go ahead, Mary. Sorry, Mary. Go ahead.
I agree with everything that Fred just said.
Rick.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree with the comments, and I'm actually assuming that regardless of what we do today, we will end up with both these gentlemen on the committee.
You never know. Tom.
Thanks, Jerry. I want to pick up on that. Peter mentioned it earlier, and others have as well, including just now Rick. These are two excellent candidates for this committee, as we know. And I know in the town there are a number of committees where they struggle to find applicants, and we've got are going to have two openings, right? Fred having termed out, and Art becoming a member of the select board. So I don't know if there's a question for you or Jackie or whomever, but isn't there a way to somehow grab onto both of these good candidates? Do we have to come at this from another angle, or are we able to even do that?
Are you asking my opinion?
Well,
because the select board, if it was a select board appointment, then my opinion might matter, but it's not. So my opinion really doesn't. It's really up to Scott Carey who comes next, right? Once you make your decision, then it goes to the new moderator. So
Okay.
I'm sorry, I can't help unless you want me to text Scott Carey and start putting pressure on him.
And that brings up a question, Jackie, is when does the term expire, and is it after the election? Is it after that was a point of confusion with all of us.
I don't know. It is a point of confusion. I think the term.
I can answer that if you'd like.
Okay.
There you go.
Your term, Fred, ends June 30th. Art's term ends June 23rd at the election. His term doesn't end, but his service does.
Yeah.
So does he?
So my service ends June 23rd as well.
No, yours would be June 30th.
30th.
And Jerry, you mentioned earlier, forgive me for interrupting, but that after you make your decision today, it would be sent to the Board of Selectmen. Your decision today is your decision. Nobody has to approve it. Under the charter, it's the Finance Committee's decision for this particular slot, for Fred's spot.
Right.
So does the term for arts replacement start on July 1, or does it start
No,
July?
it starts, the new moderator, actually, I conferred with the moderator to see whether he wanted to. I thought it would be best if he makes that decision as the new moderator. He would appoint someone to fill the unexpired term that Art has, which I think would go one more year, or maybe two, I don't recall right now. 2 more years.
Two more years, Steve.
And then the moderator would have an opportunity to either appoint that person to a full term or a different person.
But that date would start July 1 or
No,
June
July
24th?
24th
Right
or
away.
Okay.
Yeah.
or the minute
June
after
24th.
Art is sworn in as secretary, as select
Right.
board member.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, the term to replace Art would start as soon as that person's appointment is finalized as required, and then that would end on June 30th. I think Art's term goes to 2022, and then that individual could be reappointed by the moderator for up to three more terms.
That's correct.
If they so desired. That's how it goes. My term is a moderator term, and that ends next year. And so Arts was there. So we would have a vacancy starting on June 23rd until the new moderator, most likely Scott Carey, appoints, and that person goes through the process of being appointed to the committee. Mary, did you have a question?
Yes, so if Scott Carey, who becomes a new moderator, decides not to appoint me, then that's an opening on the board too.
Yes, that's correct.
Jerry, I'd like to add one thing. I don't know whether it's crucial or not, but my plan, if you did choose me, would be not to begin until the election, so that I don't occupy the title of moderator and a member of the Finance Committee at the same time. Even though I won't be moderating a town meeting, and the only other choice would be to resign, and it seems cumbersome. So if I were appointed, I would start in 2 weeks instead of in 2 days. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying, Steve. Actually, the appointment, this would be to appoint to a term that begins on July 1.
Exactly.
So you wouldn't have to resign or anything. You're not, Fred's on the committee. So for example, if some catastrophe happened, we had to have a meeting on June 30th, Fred, whether we appointed Russ or Steve, Fred would be the person who would be the man with portfolio on the committee.
Of course. Thank you.
Yeah. So let's see, Pete, George, anybody have any comments? Anyone else have any comments? I've worked with both Russ and with Steve, and this is a tough choice. I think that I would. It's likely. I think the question, Mary's question of another look. I think Steve's been off here for 6 years. It might help, and the fact that there's another opening that might Scott, who knows, I guess lives in town and knows everybody, might look at, but that's where I'm at. So I guess the process, we can do the process of in 2 ways. I can have a motion to appoint one, and we vote yes or no. And if that person gets, let's see, what do we have on? 7 gets 4 votes, then that's it, or we can just have, go through the roll call and say, whom would you, for whom would you vote? So,
Jerry,
yes.
excuse me. I didn't,
George.
you didn't invite me to offer questions or
Ah,
comments.
George, I'm sorry. Please forgive me, George. You're on.
Well, my question is this. Everybody, I think, is pretty much in agreement that we've got 2 qualified people to be on the Finance Committee. What would the committee think about whomever we vote for, that we then offer a motion to recommend to the moderator, and it's only advisory, it has no binding power, but that this committee offer a motion that it recommends the other person to be appointed by the moderator. Now, one of the reasons this occurs to me is that when we filled the condition or the position that was most recently filled by Steve, the guy from Mid-Cape.
Steve, right.
Yeah, there was some struggle to find candidates. So it's not, and I realize that an appointment might not have the same problem, but it might. My point is that we could efficiently continue the work of this committee at sort of full employment if we made that recommendation and if the moderator chose to accept it. So I throw that out for some discussion if people want to talk about it. Or I can make it as a matter of a formal motion. But the motion really shouldn't be made until we choose one of the 2 people.
Correct. That's an interesting thought, and I have no problem with that. I guess the easiest way to do this is go down the list and ask for whom you vote, voting for either Russ or Steve. So that's how we'll do it. We'll see what happens. So we'll start with Fred.
I will vote for Steve Cole.
Okay, let me mark this down here. Make sure I don't miscount. Mary.
I'm going to vote for Steve Cole.
Rick.
I'm going to vote for Steve Cole.
Tom.
I'll vote for Steve Cole as well.
Pete. Did I lose you, Pete? You're on mute or something.
Unmute.
Is Pete here? Where's Pete?
We lost him.
No, you there, Pete? All right, I'll go to George.
Steve Cole.
Okay. Well, I might as well unanimous with Steve. Okay, so Steve will be on the committee again.
Pete's back on.
Oh, Pete's back. Pete,
I'm back on, sorry. We had.
that's all right, Pete. We're good.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah, I got bumped off before too. Somehow I just got bumped off. But
Yeah.
go ahead. We did a vote voting for Steve, voting for Russ. So you got a vote.
Yep. So I think they're both great candidates, and I'm going to just be the tiebreaker for me is going to be that I have worked with Russ, but I've never worked with Steve. So in the interest of new blood, I'm going to vote for Steve.
All right. So okay. So Steve, you. Okay. So it's unanimous. We voted to get to the select board that we want to appoint Steve Cole for our position that's opening up on July 1, 2020 for a 3-year term. So now I'm going to go to George. George, would you like to make your motion to that the Finance Committee urges
Well,
the new moderator, Scott Carey?
I would like to move that the Finance Committee recommend Russ for membership on this board, subject obviously to the appointment by the moderator.
Okay. Do I hear a second to
Get a
that?
lot of stuff going
Second.
on.
Was that you, Tom?
Yep, I'll second
Did you
that.
second that? Okay,
Yes.
George, okay, so Tom was the second. Okay, just to make sure for the minutes. All right, any discussion on this motion?
I'd like to say something.
Go
So
ahead, Fred.
I don't think it's our purview to involve ourselves in the moderator's decision, and whether or not, you know, it is their decision, not, and we shouldn't try to influence it in any way, is my feeling.
Okay. Any other discussion from anyone? Okay, let's move to a vote on the motion of George. Fred?
Nay.
Right. I figured that. Mary?
Nay.
Rick?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Pete?
Nay.
George
Yes?
is an aye, and so that is 3-3, so it leaves me to me. Well, this is awful. I don't have any, I actually have had discussions with Scott and so forth, and so forth, so I don't have any problem writing him that we think that Russ is a great candidate and so forth. So I'll vote yes, and I will let Scott know either tonight or tomorrow morning about that. Is that okay?
Sure.
George? That's
Yeah.
good?
Sure, yeah.
All right. Okay, so
Hey,
now we,
Jared,
yeah, oh, Peter,
Peter, you might tell them that, you know, it was a split decision and.
split decision. I will tell him to
and-
vote.
Well, I mean, and the reason for the split decision was we didn't want to step on his toes.
We don't want to, that's right. It's his call.
Right.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is turn the floor over to Jackie and I guess Rich. I have to remember there, we have a Rick and a Rich now.
Right.
To Rich on looking at what's happening in the budget. What do we need to, what things we might need, if you want to do that, or would you like to do the transfers first, Jack?
No, I think Rich and I are prepared, and I actually will turn the mic over to him, and he can walk you through it.
Okay.
He's prepared a transfer memo, and we're still struggling, not struggling, we're still discussing the budget, so we don't have anything formal to present to you tonight, but I'll let Rich handle this portion of the agenda.
Okay, Rich, and first of all, I want to thank you, Rich, for sending this stuff out. I know, I looked at the dates, they were written on June 8th, and June 9th, so it's brand new things. Of course, you've just been on the job. I hope all of you received it. I saw that Karen from had sent them around to everyone this morning. Did everyone receive those documents?
Yes.
You didn't, Tom?
Actually, I hadn't seen it. It's on my email right now. It came at 1:53. And I haven't looked at it yet. I'll look at it.
Share it on the screen as well.
Okay.
Barry, I'm going to leave. I need to get to those meds again.
Yeah.
But I want to thank everybody. I look forward to working with you all, but I need to attend to my medical business.
Feel better.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much.
Okay,
everybody.
feel better, Steve.
Thank
Take
you
care.
much. Appreciate it.
Take care, Steve. Okay,
Mr. Chairman, we've got,
Rich, it's all yours.
we had some business to take care of, upon my arrival, some housekeeping stuff that we had to take care of. Due to the COVID-19 emergency, there was a declaration of emergency by the governor. That resulted in some unexpected spending. And I'll share the memo I wrote, drafted a memo to the Board of Selectmen, because the selectmen actually have to approve any of this unplanned spending because it's in excess of what's been budgeted for appropriation. Right now, I'm just going to use nice round numbers, but it's approximately about $100,000. About 55% of it town side and 45% of that is school side. For additional costs associated with responding to the COVID-19 emergency. So that requires a vote of the Board of Selectmen to go to the Director of Accounts for approval so that you don't get hit at the end of the year on your free cash. And also qualifies us to get reimbursed for that money. Right now, the town has been awarded a grant through the CARES Act. And of course, we can also submit all this for reimbursement for disaster assistance through FEMA. But I'd warn you, and I was in Yarmouth, I was still waiting about 7 years after the fact for, I think it was Hurricane Sandy. It's been so long, I forget what storm it was.
Wow.
Happened here too.
But hopefully, our costs won't be anywhere near what's been approved under the CARES Act. And let me just share you this memo with you real quick. The Board of Selectmen did vote to authorize this. So tomorrow with the town accountant, Tina Tilton was very helpful in helping pull all this together. And we'll submit this to the Director of Bureau of Accounts. And right here, we were awarded up to $429,000. And like I said, we're already around 100,000 currently. So hopefully it won't even come close to that. But if they're offering money on the table, I'll certainly be looking for ways to find anything that we think that is related, COVID related, to get reimbursed on it. So the way this works is we set these expenditures aside in a separate account, so it's not impactful to the operating budget. That account shows as a deficit until such time as it's reimbursed under the CARES Act or through FEMA. And so here is the memo to the selectmen. Here was their motion indicating the amount and kind of the costs that it would be going towards. I also attached, just for informational purposes, the award from the CARES Act, which shows at the end of it by city and town, all the reimbursable amounts. And there's Eastham right here, 400.
Right.
And I think that's it on this. And here's the Department of Division of Local Services bulletin that talks about emergency spending procedures. So we kind of did what we need to do in accordance with that. So of course,
Rich, I have one question. Is this these expenses that can be covered by the CARES Act, the 429,000? Will those have to, is there a point where they have to be spent? Does it end? Does it go through into fiscal year 2022, 2021, or not?
yes, well, I think it ultimately will remain to be seen, but it goes through at least through the governor's declaration of emergency. And then I would suspect, although I can't guarantee it, that perhaps sometime after that, if there's any cleanup or other final costs associated with the pandemic, but at least through the declaration of emergency is generally how those things work.
Okay, thank you.
And so that's kind of the cleanup for FY20. And then the other significant issue we have, because there's a time requirement, it was voted by the Board of Selectmen on Monday to have town meeting in September 21st. And so obviously that's after the end of this fiscal year. Our spending authority, which is derived from town meeting, expires as of June 30th. So we have no ability to spend money after June 30th, which obviously is an operational problem. So there was legislation that was passed related to the COVID-19 emergency that provides for supplemental budgets or spending plans for the upcoming year, absent a vote of town meeting. And so that's the route we have to move. And so that required that we put together a spending plan. And it's commonly known as the 1/12 budget, except it's been modified, so it's not really 1/12. What it is a minimum of 1/12 budget. And the Department of Revenue has issued guidelines as to how you could proceed with that for things such as assessments, state and county assessments, for example, that are due in full on July 1. You couldn't possibly fund it on a 1/12 of the budget. And so it has certain modifications for it. It is a little loose. I will give you that for those of us that might be like to get into the details or the weeds of things. This isn't going to be that. Department of Revenue will have their field representatives review it. They may have some questions, but by and large, they're inclined to approve them. Keep in mind, there's 351 cities and towns, school districts, water and fire districts, special purpose entities. So, somewhere in the order of 500 entities, many of which aren't having town meetings till after June, and they all need to get approved in the next 2 weeks, so that on July 1, they can actually spend money. And so the level of oversight isn't going to be high from the Department of Revenue, but it really kind of puts it incumbent on us to make sure that we do what we say we're going to do, and we're certainly going to do that. So here's the memo regarding the FY21 spending plan. And just keep in mind that this is only for 3 months, and when town meeting does take its vote, we'll have to kind of retool everything to align with that budget. But there's nothing in this spending plan for FY21 that didn't exist already in FY20. So in other words, no new initiatives are allowed to be spent, started or funded. You've got to go with what you've originally had and then just make modifications if they're contractually required, for example. And so that's to a large degree, any change from the 1/12 is, for example, if there's a contractual wage commitment. Conversely, and a line you may be interested in, you're not allowed to do any funding of OPEB or stabilization in your 1/12 budget, and so therefore that's quite a bit less than 1/12. Down at the bottom. So simply what we did is we took the typical budget presentation to town meeting, took 1/12 of it, and then added or subtracted in case there be any modifications from that. And this is what will be in front of the Bureau of Accounts tomorrow. And hopefully we'll get their approval within a week or two. But the big change is down at the bottom here.
2.1 million? Or 3.6 million?
Right, this assessment here, for example, is due on July 1. So the whole thing is being asked for. And that's most cities and towns. And also, we get a pretty significant discount if we pay our commercial policy in a lump sum on July 1. And so we're anticipating doing that and saving that 20% on that commercial policy.
Right.
Also, the one proviso I had with the selectmen when we were in front of them was on this section here. A lot of our debt, it doesn't follow a 1/12 schedule at all. It's not even over throughout the year. It's semi-annual payments. Some are July and January, some are September and March. It's kind of all over the place. This is what we had at the time, but since that point, I did complete an analysis of our debt service requirements just yesterday. And we need to, for some of the water projects, is about another $1 million that needs to be, well, not quite $1 million. There's some things in here, but there's another significant amount of money that needs to be added here for the debt service. So in any event, we'll pay our debt service and we'll pay our assessments. And by and large, most of the operating expenses are our 1/12 budget, where there was a change for contract reasons.
Okay.
And Rich, the spending that is related to COVID-19 is over and above, is separate from this, right?
That's right.
Yeah, two questions, Rich, on the, the police salary payments. It's not the new contract, right? Because that's going to have to be voted on by the town And so it's just that what you show is contractual stuff, those are step increases. Is that what's included in that?
There's some very small items among several departments, as I understand it, that are funded within prior authorizations. And so we're, committed to having to do those. But you're right, there are 3 or 4 collective bargaining arrangements in town here that are close to being settled. And the final step in that process is authorization at town meeting. And until that happens, you can't proceed on any of the funding aspects of those bargaining agreements. And so what will happen is you go into July through September 21st, paying them the old rate. And then on September 21st, they get starting paid the new rate, but they will also get a retro pay, retro to July 1. So they'll get a lump sum.
Right.
And so
Now,
the
it's
budget
also
amounts.
okay, sorry, Rick. Historically, the Nauset Regional School System would come in early in July and ask for the full, whatever the Eastham town approved payment was. In this budget, we're going to give 1/12 each month to them, or how are we doing the Nauset Regional School payment?
Yeah, the district assessments, I think, are technically quarterly, and so theoretically not till
Quarterly.
September, October. But that's one of those things that's fluid, so we might have to revisit this once we actually get into the fiscal year. The regional school district, not just Nauset, all of them are working with DESE, the State Department of Education. And I have a feeling what's going to end up happening is DESE is going to handle it all on behalf of the regional schools and just send the towns a charge and say, you got to pay it. And they might do that differently on what's normally provided for. So we got to see how that shakes out a little bit.
Okay.
If that's the case, then we just have to make a modification and get it reapproved by the Department of Revenue.
Okay.
So that $410,000 line item is not due until September?
Right, but we'd need the budgetary authority for each of the months of July, August, and September. So then in September, when it's to be paid, you've got the budgetary authority there.
And it is 410, right?
Yeah.
Very good. One thing, I'm going to go back to the COVID-19. Rich, you said that about 50 or 60% was from the town and 40% was from the schools. What do we have on COVID-19 from Eastham Elementary and from the Nauset Regional System that has come through to Eastham?
A big part of it, I haven't delved into the details all that much yet, but I do understand a big part of it is providing of meals. A lot of the school lunch program, even though they weren't running school lunch, they're still running the program for meals for the public. There was a big concern about
Food.
feeding the children when they weren't coming to school that normally might be coming to school but were remaining at home, and
Right.
it didn't have that safety net.
Right. A question, probably Jackie knows this. The lunch program that came out of, I think it came out of the Eastham Elementary School. Each elementary school handled it. Is that out of the elementary school budget? Did it come out of the Nauset Regional School budget?
I think it came out of the regional, it's out of the regional school budget. The food service is dealt with in that budget. And I guess I just want you to know, I think this is one of, not that, it matters, but I think it's one of the most important programs that we did during COVID-19.
Yeah.
Not only
Amen.
did kids and families get food every day, but we served 84 elders 3 times a week from this program. So the school kitchen produced meals that the COA then distributed 3 times a week. So I think it's been really a phenomenal success, and we're hoping to continue it over the summer, at least, the elders that are reliant on it now until Meals on Wheels and things can come back, but.
Listen, I think it's great. I was just wondering what basket did the funds come out of? That's all. I think it's wonderful. My wife taught school in a a poor district in Virginia, and the kids hated weekends
Yep.
and hated vacations because they didn't get to eat. So this food thing is very important.
It's very important.
So I'm sorry to interrupt and go off on a tangent. Rich, it's back to you.
Oh, great, thank you. Been looking forward to this all day.
I'm sure.
So one of the things I'm really sensitive to as we close out the year, additional expenses for COVID are important, but really the long-term health of the organization, where does that stand is kind of important too. And so I'll share this in a second. Let me just talk it out for a second. The big concern that we have in this type of situation is what's happening to your revenues. And I've been talking to Jackie, and hopefully in the next week or two, we'll be finalizing what that looks like for the upcoming budget for FY21. I know she's gone through and made a series of reductions from what she had originally had planned for FY21. And that's reflective of a concern of our budget funding. And so the approach that most communities have taken around here has been a percent reduction of local receipts. You know, our budget's really made up of a handful of things, property taxes being the largest, available funds like free cash and other funds being another. And then the third and the fourth have to do with local receipts and state receipts. And so property taxes, we'll always be able to assess them. And so that usually balances out the budget. Every budget is a balanced budget. So the concern on the property taxes, not that you're able to assess them, the concern is that are people actually going to pay them? So you might have to have a balanced budget on paper, showing that you can commit property taxes up to a certain amount under Prop 2.5. But if you can't collect them, then it's kind of beside the point because you have a cash flow issue. And so at the moment, Eastham seems to be doing okay. Up through yesterday or today, we have about 364 outstanding tax bills totaling about $870,000 that are outstanding, which is about double what it was in the last year at this time. So we're a little bit behind, but keep in mind the due date for tax bills was extended to June 30th. And so there's a portion of people that will be taking advantage of that. It hasn't been systemic. There was a concern at the beginning of this that, for example, banks and mortgage companies would not be remitting and really try to take advantage of the float on all the money that comes through people that pay directly on the mortgage, and that hasn't been the case. So this is mostly local folks that pay direct. But let me just show you, and this isn't anything fancy, but I just wanted to give you a sense, and I wanted to have a sense of how did our revenues look as of a recent date. And so I just downloaded this directly from our financial management system. And this shows that our budget for the year on property tax, which is basically our commitment less a provision for an overlay, is 26.3. We've collected 25.5, so just under $800,000 short. And so if we collect the remaining balance of our property taxes, we'll met our cash flow requirement on property tax. Chances are we're not going to. There'll be some amount that's outstanding, but we do have prior year collections and we do have tax liens that come in. So I think we're pretty good shape on the property tax. The other concern is how are we doing on our local receipts? Our state receipts ought to come in as budgeted. So I'm not too concerned about that. So I did a quick comparison of how we balance what local receipts we use in our tax rate setting process. And these capital accounts and caps here are just direct from our financial management system. And where it's highlighted, I've inserted those and summarized it just to make it a little easier. But our we've got several accounts that are quite a bit off. One good encouraging sign here was on hotel and motel, quite a bit over budget and quite a bit over our prior year actuals for 2019 and 18. And that reflects the new short-term rental taxes that were in effect, that weren't part of the budget. The water charges are coming in over budget. But what you'll see there we're short is on recreation, for example, beach sticker sales. Transfer station is running shorter than expected. The big hit being on landfill stickers. So that might be somewhat of a timing issue if people have been buying more recently. So I went through the whole list of revenue accounts from our financial management system. They're on this piece of paper. At the end of the day, what we really care about is, we care about every individual line, but from a financial health standpoint, what I'm really concerned about is the total. And at this point, we budgeted 4.18. We've collected 4.15 with about a month and a half to go from the date of this report. So I'm pretty confident that not only will we come in okay, so we're a little over 99%. So not only will we come in okay on property taxes, are pretty darn close, we'll be okay on state receipts, we'll be okay on local receipts, and we'll get through FY20 okay. Which then begs the question for FY21, and that's what Jackie and I will be working on, is from those receipts that you just saw, when we get the final report on FY20, what would our expectation be for any reduction in any of those things? And in talking to Jackie in the last month or two, as I understand it, some of the reductions she's been contemplating are considering a local receipt reduction in order of magnitude of around 20 to 25%. And so if our local receipts are a little over $4 million, a 25% reduction would mean we got to find a way to come up with about $1 million. And so that's what's in front of us in the next couple weeks. And what I'd anticipate is trying to, I'm going through the budget now, validating many of the lines. And usually my practice is to show in a summarized format, and the details are available, of course, but the elements of a balanced budget. So here's our total appropriations and amounts to be raised, and here's how we're funding them, and here's how that it fits within the limits of Proposition 2.5 for your tax levy, if it does, which I think we're planning on it happening. So
Yeah. Good. This is a silly question for planning. With a September 23rd or whatever town meeting, Jackie, when does the warrant have to go to the printer? I mean, when do we, as the finance committee, have to have? I think that we have a couple of things that we haven't voted on. One we'd have to do the new budget. We didn't see the charter, and there are a few other things. When does that going to have to go to the printer as I sit and plan what we have to do and when we have to meet this summer?
Yeah, during my report, I was going to talk about that, Jerry. We're obviously, Lori and I have completed a new schedule of backing out from the 21st, and we'll get that to you. But the warrant has to go to the printer the third week in August. It has to be ready for right before Labor Day.
Okay, so if we can get everything set for our normal August meeting, the second Wednesday in August, we can do all the finalization there if we have all the data in front of us.
Yes, it's
That's
excellent
great.
timing. Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you. Sorry to go offline there again. So it's either Jackie or Rich, whoever wants the floor. Go ahead. You're still on.
let's see. I think, well, I have one more thing, but that's a different agenda item. So that's all I had in way of updates. To the summarize 2020, we're looking like we're going to get through. We're going to use that experience to make adjustments to 2021, and we're hoping to tie that up in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll be able to send something out to the group.
And just to give you a comparison, last year, at the end of the fiscal year, we were positive by a little over $300,000. So, you know, there has been a loss in revenue, as Rich said. It's just, we did not budget. We didn't overestimate those revenues. So last year we came out ahead, and hopefully our conservative budgeting has helped us this year as well.
So Rich, are you considering any other reductions besides the local receipts?
At this time, I haven't. The reductions are on the appropriation side, which would then balance out the reductions on the local receipt side.
Yeah.
And so, the theory goes, at least other communities, and this is something we'll be talking about as we move forward, is if you had a plan originally that sounded good to everybody, as receipts come back, if you get back to what you expect, then theoretically you'd be adding back the things that you dropped out of this budget. But it's a balancing act. So if revenues are going down, then you have to drop the other side of the equation to match that. And then in Yarmouth, which is where I was working for the prior several years, the approach was, reluctantly cutting a lot of these things, well, all with the premise that if we have a chance in November at a fall town meeting and next May at the spring town meeting, and in preparation of upcoming year's budget, that we can evaluate our receipts returning to our pre-COVID levels. And to the extent they were, you would add back things that you had reduced back to your financial plans that you might have developed prior to that.
Okay, thank you.
I have a
Okay.
couple of questions.
ahead,
if I
George.
may. For the fiscal year 21 spending from July through September, the other required payments are about $3.5 million.
Did we lose
We
him?
lost him.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Lost them. Oh, Art came on maybe.
Art was
No,
on before.
he's been on.
Art's on,
Oh,
no,
he's been on.
somehow he went, all right, see if we can get him back on. We'll get back to his questions whenever it is. Hello, Art, glad to see you. So we can move on. Does anybody have any other questions on this? And we'll come back to this item when George reconnects at some point. And Mike, can you try and get it? Mary, you have a question.
And I think it has to do with what George was asking. So I do see that for July, August, and September, for the additional amounts that we're looking for is not quite $4 million. Is that correct? Under the other required?
I'll share it again here.
The additional amount required for July, August, and September under the spending plan is about $4 million.
So this column here,
Yeah, if you look at the other required payments, go all the way down for all of July, August, and September. There's a 3.6, and then there's August and September to add to it.
right, but those aren't added until those months.
Right. So it's 3.6 for July,
Correct.
and then it goes from there, quite a bit less in August and September. What is that going to cost the town?
Well, it doesn't cost the town anything. It's the normal spending of the town. It follows normal spending habits. So like I said, the 3 million in July is significant because of state and county assessments being due on July 1 and debt service payments due in July, being the biggest factors. But in August and September, and a little bit of it in July, and then a little bit more in August and less so in September. There's some seasonality to wages.
And I'm back on somehow. I just got cut off.
Yeah. Okay, hang on a second, George. Rich is answering a question of Mary's, and then we're going to go back to your question.
All right.
Okay?
I apologize.
Yeah, go ahead, Rich, I'm sorry.
So the big 3.6 million in July has to do with assessments and debt largely. Has much smaller amount of that 3.6, about probably 100,000 or so has to do with seasonal salaries, which are also reflected in August and a little bit less so in September. And then of course, on September 21st, if town meeting approves the budget as contemplated, that all goes away and it gets charged against the normal FY21 line items. And it still has to be accommodated within that. And so, there's a process to it. It's a little unusual, and I don't ever recall that especially on a widespread basis, that it's ever been enacted.
Yeah.
But it is what it is for this year.
And we've already collected the money. So the,
That's my
Right.
question.
Yeah.
That-
we've already collected the money, and then each month we'll collect the portions that come late, or we'll collect the new revenue that's coming in from selling beach stickers and fees and.
Okay, so
Well,
it's not going to cost the town any interest.
No, I think in the fall, and Rich, correct me if I'm wrong, but if town meeting and doesn't, if we can't set a tax rate, if we can't get the tax bills out, if there's a delay in collecting taxes, we may need to do a short-term borrowing in the fall. But for right now, we have cash.
I've got I understand your question now, Mary, a little bit better now, Mary. You're exactly right, Jackie. Eastham traditionally sets its tax rate pretty early. I think one last year, it might have even been July.
July,
But
yeah.
end of August, which means that you can get your tax bills together, and now the due doesn't change the earlier, it doesn't change the due date any earlier, but a lot of people come in and pay anyway, so you have pretty good cash flow from property tax bills, and Yarmouth did the exact same thing, because there's, a lot of snowbirds that, if they're gonna be down in Florida, they might not pay it as timely as if they can take care of it before they leave for the winter. And it's all kinds of benefits to doing it early. But in any event, if we won't be able to set our tax rate at all till after town meeting, I anticipate that we'd be pretty much ready to go. So, the day or certainly the week after town meeting, we'd be submitting it to the Department of Revenue. But guess what? That's in the time frame that the vast majority of other towns do it. So then we're playing a little bit of a waiting game, waiting on them. And so chances are our tax bills aren't going to be going out till later in the fall, due November 1, somewhere between November 1 and December 1, which might necessitate the need for a little bit of short-term borrowing, which my quick look back for Eastham isn't uncommon. I think you had borrowed about $3 million last year.
Yeah.
And on the current interest rates at about $3 million for 90 days or 60 days, you're probably talking about 10 grand or so.
Okay.
Mhm. Okay, George, you've got the floor again, so I think you should start from the beginning.
All right, well, I think you just answered my first question, which was whether you were going to have to borrow to cover the additional expenses you were going to have to pay from July through September. And basically, you're saying you don't think you're going to have to borrow, but if you do, it's not a lot.
Yeah, I would anticipate, we certainly have money on hand at the end of June, and you were allowed under law to borrow internally as long as we notify the Bureau of Accounts and and can ensure that it's repaid within the fiscal year. But absent that, that only lasts you usually for most towns just a handful of months. So if the tax bills are going to be going out late, then I would probably I'll be revisiting that and looking at cash flow for the months of September, October, November until our tax collection is coming in. So I'll probably be looking at, if anything, a 90-day short-term note, probably in the order of magnitude of around $3 million. And the rate on a short-term note nowadays is about 1.6%. It's a good time to be borrowing, so let's line up all our projects and get them in.
All right, my other question was really just a matter of clarification. In your memo regarding the COVID emergency expenditures, it's not clear from that memo that the money that we qualify for, the funding that we qualify for, it's not clear if that's a grant or a loan. So is it a grant or a loan?
It's a grant.
Okay, thank
We
you.
won't have to pay that back.
That's a nice term, grant.
It technically isn't a grant, but for the answers of your question, yes, we don't have to.
All right. We like, any other questions on this particular budget item? We'll go on to the next one, if none.
I have a budget.
Good, Mary, go.
I know that the roof on the town hall was recently completed. How was that paid for?
Insurance.
Insurance?
right at the beginning of the COVID closure. So I want to say that third week in March, second or third week in March. We walked into town hall one morning and the ceiling in the treasurer's office had collapsed and there was rain everywhere. So Silvio called our insurance company, and they came out and did some quotes, and we got the roof paid for.
Now, Jackie, that was a repair. That wasn't the full
No,
roof.
they put a new roof, a whole new roof.
A new roof.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Well,
Does that affect
Pete's,
CPA monies?
It will when we sort of begin again. We'll have to get back to you around a new figure for the rest, because they didn't do any of the, they didn't do any of the other repairs, it's just the roof. But, I
Just
mean,
the-
that's a huge
yeah,
That's a
gift
big
to
piece.
us, yeah.
wonderful.
Since we pay
All right.
so much in insurance premiums, it is nice to get something back occasionally.
All right, any other questions? All right, the next agenda item, let me see where, is the transfers. And I know that I saw at least something that Richard sent out had some transfers in there, and
Yeah.
we can talk on those. But the first question I'm going to have before we even start is, we used to, when we had a transfer, if we agreed, we'd sign a piece of paper. How do we do transfers now?
You would still do it exactly the same way, but we are not requesting a transfer from your reserve fund, so you don't need to sign
Okay.
anything. We're
Oh,
just
that's good.
asking for a transfer within the budget, which is legally allowed in the last month of the year, and Rich will walk you through it.
Okay,
Yeah.
great,
Yeah,
thanks.
been expanded to the last 3 months of a fiscal year.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
There's a provision that any shortfalls with concurrence of the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen transfer within appropriations between operating budget accounts. And so that's what we'd ask you to do. Being brand new to the town, probably don't have a level of detail that I'd like to eventually have to answer probably some of your specific and detailed questions. So in the future, I'll be better prepared. But what did get sent out, and I'll share on the screen in a second, was an effort from our town accountant, Tina Tilton, who did a great job of analyzing the budgets and projecting forward through the end of the year. Several accounts that we're going to be coming up short. Some of them are just, apparently how things got allocated as far as salaries. The town clerk was a big one. It just happened to be in a elected line item versus a salary line item, and that's just really semantics. And so perhaps it's something you and I, as a group, can look at for the future of how we do that. But in any event, it is how it was voted at town meetings, so that's what we're beholden to, making sure we don't overexpend, and so that's why you'd have a transfer, something like that. And other expenses had to do with DPW and natural resources. As I understand it, there was some degree of reorganization among those groups that saved some money from 2 employees that left, and so there's some surplus funds in those salary line items that are going to replace overage and other salary accounts. So that was kind of a combination issue. And then some are honestly just some, apparently look like some misbudgeting on salary wage line items. And that's something I've picked up just in this first week that we need to do a little bit of a better job on going forward, is how we do salary projections on a department by department basis. And so that's something I'll be working on. But in any event, we are where we are at the moment. And here is the list of transfers. I just shared on my screen.
And Rich, I can explain the elected town clerk. I think most of you were here when Sue Fisher resigned in the middle of her term. And so we did not have a special election for town clerk. I was allowed, the Board of Selectmen was allowed to appoint Cindy Nicholson, and then we didn't backfill that position. So Cindy moved up into the clerk seat, and that's why we have the elected money available, because she had to be paid from a regular salary line.
So the items on the left here are where we are short, and the items on the right are the budget lines from which we would be making them whole. As the bounce balance out, there's no increase in the budget. It's taking savings from one line item to put into another.
Yeah, thank you for that explanation, Jackie. I was wondering what happened with the elected town clerk, how we suddenly had all this money, or what did we do? And
Well,
now
in
I
the middle
understand.
of the year, we can't move from an elected line to a
Right,
salary.
right. Yeah, no, that was excellent. How, does anyone, first question, does anybody have any questions on any of those line items on the transfers? Let's get that over, and then we'll figure out, then we'll ask whether we want to, if everybody agrees, to do the transfers all with one motion and one vote, or go line by line on the transfers. But anybody have any question on any of these, any of the transfers? It looks like we have two items, basically where the money came from, the town clerk elected slot, and some salary savings out of natural resources.
Could they show us, could Rich show us the chart again, please?
Sure.
Oh, sure.
I don't, a copy.
It was a separate sheet, Mary.
Yeah, it was a sheet that came around, that came around, but Rich is putting it up right now. There it is.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a question. What are planning board salaries? Is that arts pay?
Yeah, Art, hey, there we go.
And this was an example of, I don't have the specific details that I will in the future, but as I understand this one, there's an employee that gets split between multiple departments and perhaps
Right.
not properly allocated between those departments during the year.
She does the
Staff.
minutes for the planning board, yeah.
Staff, got it, yep.
Okay. So what was the overage that we have in natural resources? I see where we had to pay some DPW salaries. What was what's any reason for what's up with natural resources? It looks like we've got a pretty good amount, what, $35,000 there?
We had a
40,
position that we kept open. We didn't fill, we didn't backfill.
Got it.
57.
Is it 57? I don't know. I was just doing a quick
58.
add.
Yeah, 58.
There's
All
two.
right.
There was some summer help and then there was a full-time position, I think.
Okay. All right. So anybody have any questions on these? Would we like, is it okay from the point of view of the town, if we do these with one motion, or do you want a motion on each of the transfers?
I'd suggest perhaps that you do one motion, but refer to the document. So you vote to approve the transfers as presented. And that way you maintain the detail, but you're saving yourself some time.
Yeah, thank you. All right, do I have a motion?
I'll move.
Yeah.
So moved. So this is a motion the motion is to approve the transfers as presented by the document that our Director of Finance and Assistant Town Administrator presented to the committee. Do I hear a second?
I'll second the motion.
So Rick seconded, and I think it was George, George made the motion, Rick seconded. I'm going to get this Rich and Rick wrong for a long time. Seconded. We have any discussion? All right, we'll go through a vote. Fred?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Pete?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Art?
Aye.
Jerry Gray's an aye, and that's the 8-zip. Okay. That's done. Is there any, Jackie, do you have anything that you would like to report as a report from the town administrator outside of the budgets?
Just a couple of things that I'm preparing to come your way. Usually we do reports on the capital projects during your meetings, and I know we've sort of put, some of those have been frozen in time since January, but others are making progress through a sequence. So I'm going to do, since I have to do it for both you and the Board of Selectmen, I'm going to do a formal written staff memo to you and the Select Board going through all the updates, just bullet point updates on all the capital projects, and then I'll attach my budget spreadsheets, not the Munis ones, but my budget spreadsheets attached to those, so you can see where we are and you can ask questions at your next meeting. And then
Okay.
I'm also going to send you a new timeline that we referenced earlier about town meeting. So we'll have, we have a new town meeting date. We have a new local election date. Cindy Nicholson, in her first year as clerk, has really, honestly, if any of you have any doubt that she could do the job, not that we did, but this is a 5-election year for her, which is unprecedented. So in her first year, so it's amazing. But we've set another local election date to follow our town meeting, not waiting for the presidential, because it's just too complicated to combine our ballot questions with the presidential election. So I'll send all of that out to you, and then you can see the approvals needed. Unfortunately, where summer is usually financially our downtime, we're not planning budgets and stuff. We're sort of redoing the whole town meeting season now. So I'm sorry about that, but we're all in that boat together.
Well, at least our crew is not in Florida anyway, though, right?
Right.
Anything, is there, oh, there was one thing I was going to ask you, and I've now totally forgotten, Jackie, but that's okay. I'll harass you another day.
Okay.
And we have, there's right now no emergency thing pulling anything out of our reserve fund, so that's going to just go to free cash on the 1st of July.
From your lips to God's ears, yes.
That's good. I'm glad of that. Does anyone have any other? Mary, waving your hand. Sorry, Mary.
Okay, in our past meetings, it was discussed that what used to be Article 9 and Article 10 was going to be combined in some way and rewritten. I'm wondering what the status of that article is. It's the family support article.
Yeah, I followed it. I have to be honest with you, although we've touched the budget continuously, I have not gone back to start the warrant redo yet. And Rich and I talked about those two articles, I want to say early April. And we haven't had a discussion about it since. So we'll get to it soon. And I think the intention probably would be still to combine them, Mary, but we just need to, Rich and I need to talk about it.
Okay.
Right.
I just wanted to know the status of
Yeah.
of that.
Right.
The Board of Selectmen is still very committed to that article, if that's part of the question.
Thank you.
Jackie, one question. We had, since we're going to have basically by town meeting time, a different finance committee than the one that voted for a lot of the articles. Do we have to do a revote on every article, or can we just pick up the ones that have changed?
Jerry, what's going to be different?
What's good? Well, you won't be on there to vote no.
I'll still be on a town meeting. Oh, no, I won't. No, I was thinking.
No, you won't.
No, you're right.
You're
right.
gone.
This is my last meeting.
This
This
is
is it.
it. That's right.
My swan song.
This is it.
Okay, I'll see you.
And Fred will be gone. We don't,
Yeah.
and hopefully Mary's on, but whatever,
So,
and Tom, but do we
it's,
have to redo everything?
well, it's a new warrant. I mean, technically, legally, it's not the same warrant. It's a different warrant.
Ah.
And so I don't know. My guess is yes, you'll have to revote. Some of the articles are
Okay.
going to be absolutely the same and some will, because Rich wasn't a part of that process, I absolutely want him to look at all the financial articles and tweak,
Right.
what he wants to. So I think we have a new collaborator and we'll have to engage that. So, and it's, we have to open the warrant again, so we could have new articles.
Oh, you have to open it up for new petitioned articles?
Yes.
What about, did the old petitioned articles, are they still going to be on it or what?
So legally, the old petitioned articles don't just carry over, but
Oh,
the
boy.
board, no, don't panic. The select board agreed that they would honor them. So what I'm going to ask the select board to do is just put them on the warrant. So if they place them on the warrant, then the petitioners
not
don't have to
petitioned.
go through a process. Yeah.
Right,
But any
okay.
new articles would have to go through the special town meeting process, which is more signatures required to get on the new warrant.
Right, okay.
But we'll do a little express warrant go through and hopefully when we bring a new warrant to you, it won't be like this one where we're changing it every, we'll just
Right.
wait till we have the good numbers, the numbers that we're comfortable with, and then you can
Right.
vote them.
So I would expect our August, I don't know what day what day it is, that meeting could be a rather lengthy one, but not as bad as the others because a lot of the warrant articles will be.
Right, everything's familiar.
Basically the same, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, that's good.
And before that, we'll have to talk to the select board about the proposed budget. So we'll talk to you about the proposed budget. So
Yeah.
you'll have some of the important elements and you'll just be
Yeah.
voting the warrant.
Yeah, okay.
Hopefully it'll be like a mini redo.
Yeah.
You're not fixing dinner for us?
So there we go. See, Art's gone, so.
Oh.
Yeah, Art's gone, so
Okay.
we won't have parties.
No more food, it's gone.
No, we'll move the parties now to the select board, Art. 'cause
Oh,
that
there,
makes sense.
I don't
Oh.
like
Oh, no,
that.
Oh,
That's a
can't do
reasonable
that.
no.
no.
That's, one of the things on the ballot that was.
If we have the good fortune to be together in August, I will make you food.
All right.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things in the ballot was I never knew Art's initials were AAA, but that's okay.
Oh.
But does anybody have any questions for Jackie or anything? And
Yeah, Jackie,
Pete, go.
Jackie, could you remind town council that we're waiting for their blessing on the charter review
Yeah.
article?
They've been very
Oh.
slow, and I think it's all
Right, we
because
haven't
of the
seen that.
town meeting issues that they're dealing with.
I'm
as-
sure, yeah. Just
Okay.
shake the
Yeah,
tree.
because we need, it would be nice to get that, 'cause we're gonna have to make a
Vote on it.
recommendation on it. We haven't, because we haven't even seen it, so that would be nice.
Mhm.
Okay, Mary,
Jackie, under the new COVID-19 rules, it's my understanding that there isn't any requirement as far as number of people for a quorum. Is that correct?
Yeah, there is a requirement. It's a minimum of 10% of the current quorum, and that has to be set by the select board. So they would have to vote a reduced quorum.
Oh, they'd have to vote for it. It's not automatic.
No, the Board of Selectmen has to vote for it. And, they're not very open to it, I have to be honest with you. They love the quorum. Everybody seems pretty set with the quorum. So they might in this case because it's a special situation, but normally they would not, my guess is they would not change the quorum.
Okay.
What I've reached out to with our electronic voting, and Mike and I are starting to have discussions, is how to be able to do electronic voting in multiple rooms. So so we can spread out more at the high school.
right.
But it's still gonna be at the school.
That's what I'm planning right now, yeah.
You don't wanna have the outdoor picnic?
Not
football
September
field.
21st.
The
I'm
football
thinking
field.
September 21st can be a little dicey. You know, it could be gorgeous, it could be buggy, could be,
Hurricane.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Hey,
I'm trying to think.
Jackie, I got a off-topic question, as I usually do. Um, Did I hear
His
you
last
say you're
meeting.
still in the process of negotiating the collective bargaining agreement, or did Rich say that?
Somebody said that.
We went
If
in,
so, which ones?
okay, we have 5. We went into COVID with 4 of them having tentative agreements. So what we have done is I've had discussions with all the unions and the Board of Selectmen. We're going to be moving to make those union agreements solid, signed prior to the end of the fiscal year, hopefully, so that we can at least start the fiscal year with all of the new provisions that we have agreed to.
Yes, sir. And you know where I'm going with this.
I
So
do.
So are you comfortable with the provisions that are in the police collective bargaining agreement with respect to what's going on these days?
Yes.
Okay. I'll leave it at that.
That's good. It's one of the nice things. All right, any other questions for Jackie? All right, the next time agenda had to do with the schools, and I think we have some things coming up. As you look at what COVID-19 has done with basically ending in-person education early, and the schools have had to help with Wi-Fi and so forth. There have been some reductions in costs potentially with transportation and things. And then looking, what in the world are we going to do in September? I mean, COVID-19 isn't going to be gone in September. And do we start school? And if we start school, do we have social distancing? And what kind of expense and what kind of changes is that going to cause in both the elementary school and in the middle and high school? So I wanted to raise with the committee to maybe contact the Nauset Regional School and contact the principal of the elementary school to potentially to see where they're willing to meet with us, talk to us. What are we looking at costs, and what kind of things could that affect on East Ham's budget? Not so much in 2020, but looking at 2021 and going in the future. You know, what are they planning? Are there things that we should be on the lookout for having to do with finances? And I don't know if the select board is already doing that and so forth, but I think it would be, my thoughts were it'd be an interesting idea to at least start that discussion. Not that they're going to have any numbers for us, and so, but what are they looking at? What are they planning? What kind of things might we, so we're not totally surprised if something negative comes.
If there's one thing I've learned since the beginning of this, is that surprise is normal now, and we have to become comfortable with it. So I would think, Jerry, honestly, that's a great idea, but I can tell you that if we contacted Tom Conrad or Bill right now, what they're going to tell you is they're waiting for the state Board of Education to start to give them some guidance, and I believe that it just started to trickle out this week. So they haven't had a chance to process anything yet. And just like the guidance that we get, you know, the governor makes a decision on Saturday, we have to implement it on Monday. So that was a long timeline. The first time it was, you know, less than 24 hours to open up golf courses statewide. So, you know, we're all like trying to guess what the governor's guidance is going to be. And I think the schools have been in conversations all along, but they don't know, and they don't know the financial implications yet. So I think we do have to give them at least until the middle of the summer, right? Probably right when we're talking about our warrant Rich, I would guess they're going to start having numbers and a plan that's starting to really get finalized. So,
All right, I don't mind putting it off, but I just think it's important, not in a negative sense that they're spending
No.
money, but we know that if things, the new normal might be different and might have some serious
Yeah.
effects on.
yeah, and I know they are
finances.
talking about split sessions to try and
Mhm.
lower the amount of kids that are in the classrooms at
Right.
certain times. And that's definitely a longer day. I don't even want to think about how that's going to be unrolled, but.
School buses.
The proposal I've heard that's being kicked around is not only split sessions, it could be as small as 10 students in a class. And
Yeah.
then you'd have split sessions plus online, just an incredibly complex kind of situation. So I think there's a lot that's going to sort out.
In the
Yeah.
next month or so, yeah.
Yeah.
Art's
We-
waving his hand, Jerry.
Yes, Art, go ahead. I'm on an
No,
iPad. I don't get everybody here. Go ahead, Art.
I think I know the answer to this. And if I don't, I should know the answer to this. But as you said, because of the changes in the last 3 months, there's probably some savings on the school budget. Now with transportation is probably a pretty big one, assuming they didn't have to pay them. even if they
Contracts,
didn't
I don't
pay
know,
them.
yeah.
What happens if they underrun the money that we've approved for the schools? Do they keep it or does it come back to the town? I
I-
think they keep it, but I want to ask.
They keep it, but it goes to what's called E&D, which is the
Yeah.
equivalent of cash.
Free cash, it's like their free cash, yeah.
Yeah.
And then they spend it in next year's budget, just like we spend our free cash.
Well,
Yeah.
normally that would not be a lot of money, normally.
Right.
But I've got the feeling that this year, it could be quite a bit. Maybe not.
It could be. They've had to pay, if you think about it, it may be buildings maintenance and stuff. They've had to pay all of their staff. They've had
Right.
to provide all these extra meals programs. The PPE was really expensive at first, so there's a lot of that. But I don't know. I mean, I think you're right. There could be areas that they weren't contractually obligated to spend money in. I don't know if transportation is one of those, though. I think they sign a contract and,
I think there's
Yep.
been some savings in transportation, but I did have contact with both the tech
Donna.
and the Nauset district, and I'll be meeting with them some point in the near future, just to touch base. I wouldn't expect a huge amount in E&D, but to the extent it's there, the superintendents and business managers are meeting almost every day on conference calls or phone calls. And most school districts are, to the extent they're going to have any excess E&D, are applying it against the budgets to avoid any significant increases, because a lot of school districts have already voted their assessments, and legally it's hard for them to go back and re-vote those assessments. Got to keep in mind, maybe there's a little bit less costs, but everyone is planning for a significant state aid reduction. And so that's probably where
Right.
the E&D, to the extent it exists, is going to go, is to plug that gap. So that you don't get a new assessment that's significantly greater than what you had previously planned on.
All right, well,
stay tuned on the schools.
we'll have to talk about it. That's right. We'll have to
Yeah.
stay tuned. Does anybody have any other I have one item for new business. I wanted to get Fred's last report on the water. What's happening on the water project, Fred?
So when did we last meet on the water, Jackie?
I think it was December or January. That's what I meant. It feels like
Oh,
frozen. It
that's
feels
that
like
long?
10
Okay.
years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, they're
You know,
finally
I don't know.
getting back
I
to business, but I haven't been in touch with them. We haven't had a water meeting, like I said. Was it December and I was in Florida,
I
right?
think so. So we
They're
basically,
tearing up the streets around me this week, so they're still working.
So we've just
Well,
signed.
They definitely,
Yeah,
go ahead, Jack.
we've signed the contracts for Phase 2B. So Diggett Construction won both of those two contracts. Phase 2B is a smaller one. Remember, this is the extra contract that we kind of put together between what was Phase 2B and Phase 2C. So we compressed it and added some roads, and so it's a smaller contract. I will tell you that the statistics I'm sending you out, we're at about a 41% hookup rate. So this contract, the wisdom of going after the places where people want the water is really paying off, as opposed to just going through a plan that, you know, covers each area of the town methodically.
And most of what you're doing is in the densest part of town in the
Yep.
northeast.
Yeah. So we are hitting the areas around that have some water quality issues because of salt intrusion. So that's why it's good. We're picking up a lot of customers.
Yeah.
And I saw they're marking up the streets down here, so I guess they're gonna keep
Yeah.
doing paving too.
Yeah, I know. It's, actually, the outdoor construction projects have really been good during the COVID shutdown even, so.
And Herringbrook Road is a pleasure to drive on, isn't it?
That's beautiful.
So that is the best news of the water project. We are still ahead of schedule. We are still under budget, and we have
Have you
used some of that excess to fix more roads and to add pavement management to the contracts, which has been really helpful. So,
And how are we on the uncovering our cost on the usage charges? The,
user charges, I just looked at the revenue today, and so far this year, we've collected $286,000. So we are getting close. I think by the end of next year, we'll definitely be at a break-even point, and we'll have our 1,500 customers, which was, you know, the target last year.
Good.
and we won't start the enterprise fund until,
No, we're starting the
September?
enterprise fund this after town meeting. So
right. in
that was one
September.
of the decisions Rich and I talked about earlier, was like, do we put it off because it's the mid-year? And no, we're going to go forward with it. So.
Good.
Sorry, Jerry.
All right. No, that's fine. Does anybody have any other new business they want to raise?
All right.
Mary?
I just want to announce that the library started curbside service last Tuesday. And we have a schedule, and we are open for curbside service on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays with a specific schedule for how people pick up the books that they're interested in getting. It's going quite well.
My wife used it and it was easy. It worked well.
Good.
Anybody else have anything? All right, before I hear for a motion to adjourn, I want to take this time to thank Fred. It's been my pleasure to work with you, and I hope that you keep doing stuff. I mean, you were on the landfill, you were on recycling and the whole bit. And besides water, I hope you continue, Fred. It's been a joy for me. And Art,
What are you
I
gonna
gotta
say?
figure out who else I'm
You're
gonna
right.
dump on. Who else am I gonna dump on? You know, I mean, what am I
I
gonna
know.
do? And just, you have to be nice to us in joint finance.
You watch out, I
select
may
board
end up
meeting.
to be your liaison.
Oh, God. Oh,
Wouldn't
hell.
that be
Oh, no.
fun?
Look at everybody's frowning now. Okay, now I know.
Oh, you guys are all great. So anyway, thank you all. Do I hear and Rich, it was a pleasure to hear from you, and you did fine, even though you said you didn't know any of the real details. Good job, and we look forward to working with you. And Jackie, thanks for keeping the town together during this mess, and your staff has been just wonderful working. So that's a
They are.
plus.
They're amazing.
Yeah. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make
Make
that
a
motion.
motion to adjourn.
Fred, yeah, the two
I beat you to it, Art.
Yeah,
All right, I'll
Fred got
second
that
it.
motion to adjourn. Art seconds it. Any discussion? All in favor? I gotta go through the thing. Okay, Fred,
I say aye, and I want to thank you all for putting up with me, and it's been a pleasure working with you. I'm sure that I'm not done with the town yet.
Oh, good.
okay, one hope. Mary,
Yes.
Rick,
Aye.
Tom,
Aye.
Pete,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
and Arthur.
And I want to also tell you, thank you very much. I really enjoyed our meetings. I had a great time. We had good times. And I think, Jerry, I'd like to compliment you on where you've taken the finance committee from where it was. I think we're a lot more proactive. I think we're a lot more involved. And I think it's really great. So thank you very much.
So thank you. And I vote aye, and the meeting is adjourned. Be well and be safe.